go. There we go. So swing profiles, the traditional way of thinking about it is like a power side and a contact side. If you think about scouting, they give you a scale on 20 to 80, but there's really two sides of it. So the first one we're going to walk into is power, and we'll get into contact. So power is something that particularly goes really well with scale as well as size. So bat speed is the easiest one. We categorize this as like raw power. If you hit the ball, how far is it going to go? The more bat speed you have, the more chance you have to hit the ball hard. So there's a big difference between a guy that swings about 75 miles an hour or 55 miles an hour. Now, on the other side is how is that power efficient? And that's going to be the rotational acceleration side. So you'll notice I have a blast metric next to our metric, and then the big one above it is how we categorize it into kind of the hitting world. So it's really important to have power, but what does that mean? There's the raw power side and the power efficiency side. So let's look at this in the app. We have bat speed and rotational acceleration. Two people can have the same bat speed, but how they do it is much faster. One is much faster than somebody else. So side by side, two guys can have high bat speeds at a certain point in time, but how they get there or how they build up their peak bat speed is much different. So which one's more important? Bat speed is like a prerequisite to playing at a certain level. You have to have bat speed to hit the ball hard enough so that the defense has a hard time fielding. It's literally that simple. So what we saw was a really cool thing that happened was we worked with two summer leagues. One was the Cape Cod, best college baseball players. The other one was a smaller, newer startup, and bat speed in that smaller college summer league was the one predictor of success. The guys that had bat speed for their level of player above succeeded far beyond any of the other players that didn't have bat speed for that level. So it's almost like the prerequisite for pitching. Like if you throw hard, you can do better at that level. So bat speed is really important. One way to think about rotational acceleration is the ceiling. So if you're in high school and you swing the bat, like you will succeed. But if you're going to jump up to a Division I level or back to the minor leagues and stuff like that, how you build up that bat speed is super important. So rotational acceleration is do you do it fast enough now, and do you do it fast enough later on? So where does this really play in? The two hitters that I have right here will succeed because they have higher bat speeds. The major league average is 70, so they're gonna hit the ball hard. But on a rotation side, where does it stand in? Rotational acceleration is how quickly do you accelerate into your peak bat speed. So if you're a younger player out there and you want to perform at a higher level, eventually you have to do it fast enough to face the best pitchers in the world. So here on the left is pitches, 3 or 4 different pitches coming in from, I think this is actually Clayton Kershaw data. So if you have low rotational acceleration, you have to start your swing way out here in clump number 1. You got to make your decision pretty early. You don't really know where you're going. 2 or 3, you get to make that decision later. The hitters that have high rotational acceleration, their swing right here, make a great chance of the ball, see it there. If you look at Justin Turner, it's probably one of my favorite examples. Chest is fully pitcher. Look how close the ball is with the catcher's mitt. He could probably still check that swing if he wanted to. He's got some of the bat lag. So it's one of my favorite images. This is a quick little GIF that sometimes plays. It doesn't look like it did, but again, another example, the ball comes in. Maybe I will play it. Hopefully this plays for you guys. But the ball comes in, it's almost crossed the plate. Look how far his hands are back. So we can literally see that thing, choose whether or not to swing, go from there. So you can see kind of some of the swing mechanics, but pretty much I want to call out how late that ball is across the plate where he can make a swing decision. By the way, this is actually a home run. So he didn't just like get jammed or blow up his bat. That's actual home run. So that's the power side. I know it's probably pretty quick, but that's how we really like to break it down, and we'll have a little bit more on that here to come. But the other one is the contact side. And this, to me, is where if you're on the youth side or you're a little bit lower age, you're trying to come up, this is something that you want to dial in early, dial in quick, because if you have power, that could develop over time. Some people's strength, speed, anything like that, and there's things we can do to change that. So on the contact side, we have swing path and swing direction. Our swing path metric is on-plane efficiency. Swing direction is attack angle. Again, I have the 2 blast metrics here. There's a big difference between 80% and 50% and +9 and -7. Well, those are just numbers. So let's use a little bit of a visual. I like to assume people know our metrics. So this is a quick example of on-plane efficiency. We take impact we work backwards to create a disc around your body on that pitch, and we measure how long your bat was on that plane. I like to think about a record player. If you think about an axe on a swivel, if you think about a rock tied to the end of a string, it's going to find a plane. Kind of want to be 70% or above. Every swing has its own swing plane because we work off contact. So knowing where the pitch is, your on-plane efficiency or your swing plane may change. The pitch dictates that. So the gray ellipse is a little bit higher, blue ellipse is a little bit lower. So looking at these, you want to have a good on-plane efficiency and a good attack angle. Just like bat speed and rotational acceleration, we look at these two together. Both of these hitters have high on-plane efficiencies. One person swings down on the ball, a lot harder for them to make contact, smaller window for success, things like that. Hitter on the left, much better idea, positive 12, swing is nice and smooth, things like that. So that's a great visual for it right there. Ryan, you time check me. I think I'm at a pretty good pace right now.
Yeah, you're good.
Beautiful. So I know that was quick. I will send this PowerPoint to Ryan so that everybody that goes on this can have it, all the examples, all the video stuff. We'll get it going from there. So now you're looking at, guys, you got the power side, you got the contact side. Now, blast measures a lot of stuff, but this is a great starting point to say, okay, what type of hitter do I have? On the power side, what is my bat speed on my raw power side, power efficiency on the rotational acceleration, and then my contact profiles. So as the coach, you can look at this data and you can say, okay, what can I do? So you can share the data at a single point in time. Let's say it's a month, whether you're training one-on-one. You can show the data over time. And based on those two things, you'll drive development or a maintenance plan, because a lot of times during season, you got to maintain it. So let's look at one of the first ones. So this is like a blast swing player profile. You can see we've got a power side, we've got a metric side, you've got a player's average, a player's max. There's some load consistency stuff. This is a report that you could put together on your own. This is actually one that we have at Blast. So if you're an existing customer, reach out to your account manager. If you're interested in getting a team package, go to the website. We got someone to talk to. I'll have my Twitter handle at the end of this if you want to reach out to, but this is something that builds some of our key accounts at the moment. So you can start to look through. So as I click through these, if you just look at the dots below, you'll just see that they change outside of the target range. So it gives you a pretty good swing profile of what the guy looks like. We've got a rotational acceleration that averages at 8 here on the left, but maxes out at 15. So you can see that there's a pretty big jump there. You can kind of see where guys are going. So I like to just kind of flip through these just to show some of the differences. But this is a great example of showing data. This is actually from 3 players from October. So in a little clips of what's going on. This is super important because if you have like a training plan, you can go back, start to see them. It looks like from there. The other end of it is you can show data over time. And this is probably one of the ways that I like to look at it the most, because you got to see where you've been. You've got to see what's changed. So the example I'm going to show is with early connection. This is an easy graphic just to identify what we're actually measuring here. This to me is the consistency of the load. What's the angle between the bat and the body when I start my swing, or that violent part. So I'm just tracking it over the course of the season. So we'll get into this a little bit about capturing and doing stuff at home. If you're a player on this call, there's a lot of things you can do so that you can get super valuable information on your swing, so you can understand what your swing is and how you go about it. So these are 2-week assessments, where every 2 weeks you went through the exact same like test. So early connection value is in range for the first 3 or 4 tests. This was actually season data. So right here in May, their load starts to get a little high and it changed. Now, this hitter had a lot of issues at the plate in the middle of May and June. So their early connection got a lot higher. It was harder for them to kind of manipulate that into the zone. So they kind of saw stuff like that. So you can take this and say, okay, what's changed in your swing? Let's go back to some sort of swing profile, come up with a development plan, and kind of go from there. I know it's a little high level, but this all ties in together at the end for you guys right there. So that's a little bit of what the coach can do. Now, adding context and knowing your data are the 2 talking points I had for the player side. So what does context mean? In the app, it's super easy for either the coach or the player to add context to what's going on. So in the app right here, every single time you hit, it's super important to make sure you tag what type of data that is, because then you can pull it apart. So using the app, general practice, set the context, and then you can go ahead and close your swing. Close your app and start swinging. This is actually, I get asked a lot, like, how do I like to use the app? What view do I like? This is actually the view that I use. Notice the kind of impact metric on the left. So I got bat speed and attack angle, and I got rotational acceleration and on-plane efficiency on the right. So this was your power profile line. Here's your contact profile line, and then here are your connections. Now, the reason that the context is so important is because this is one of those same player profiles without the context. So you have slow bat speed, you've got way more swings, you've got who knows what type of drill or one-handed thing this might have been with the sensor on. So when you're using the app, context can be super powerful. It helps you as a player, as the coach, it helps you filter out data on what you're trying to look at, and kind of go from there. This is a nice view in Blast Connect, filtering any team report by those. All environments right here, you can go ahead and select that. So if you wanted to pull a full team report based on assessment data or anything like that, you can kind of go ahead. At the at-home stuff, since you are training regularly, there's probably some sort of cadence to it. So pick a day of the week that's going to be a test day or an assessment day. Going back to slide right here, right? We actually have an assessment context. So select, as a player, like select a test myself. These are my game swings. Set it. Let's say in this example, Monday is our test day. Do your assessment. Go ahead and say, okay, what does that data look like? And then that's going to set my training for the week. What should I focus on? Then on the back end, if you're part of a team or you're a coach, you can start to go in and do that whole thing and say, all right, now let's look at the assessments for my players. And you can start to put together what those player development plans look like. How long are they going to be? What am I going to focus on? Kind of go from there. The last thing I'll call out before I get into like a little bit more of just kind of what I think, right? If you go to Blast Connect or you use us, you can also go to, I believe, just blastmotion.com and go to the training center. If you click on help, this understanding scores and metrics includes a PowerPoint on everything that we have. There's an insights guide that breaks down what certain metrics are and how to go about it that way. There's good information on some drills that you can get out of. There's a lot of good drills and a lot of good content out there. This is probably one of my other favorite slides to show. This is more of a coach's standpoint. As you start digging into data, you're going to have some similarities, you're going to have some differences, but at the end of the day, sometimes you're dealing with athletes, and athletes are sometimes freaks. So everybody's data is going to be a little bit different. You're always going to want some sort of objective information to drive subjective conversation. I always get asked what my metric picks are. These are kind of my top: bat speed, early connection, on-plane efficiency, attack angle, and rotational acceleration. These are somewhat in order, but these are really like my big five. Bat speed to me is all about swinging with intent. Early connection is all about the consistency of my load. Am I doing the same repeat movement? Am I starting from the same spot every time? On-plane efficiency is how smooth my swing is. Attack angle is that smooth swing going in the right direction. And then rotational acceleration is how fast can I do those things? Can it face whatever level I'm trying to play at? Finalizing around here on what to try and kind of train around on like the remote standpoint. If there's any questions, I will do the Slack thing a little bit. There's my email address. There's my Twitter. If you guys want to reach out with any questions, the player profile stuff. As far as training at home, one of the cool things I think about training at home that sometimes goes unseen is you can always swing off of the tee. Some people may have front toss, things like that. But there's a lot of things that you can do to improve your swing without necessarily having the bat in your hand. Or if you do have the bat in the hand, you don't necessarily have to swing and hit the ball. Things like early connection. I love all the PVC pipe drills that work on like body direction, using your body to adjust to different pitch locations. There's a lot of pre-swing stuff that you can do with like hip mobility, stretching, core strength and stuff like that to help some of those bat speed, rotational acceleration metrics. And then any sort of the constraint drills. So favorite drills of mine are PVC pipe, bat on the shoulder. If you can swing a heavy bat, swing a heavy bat. Those are some of the things that you can start to do at home to kind of influence those numbers. But I think the most important thing is knowing where your swing's at, so that you can focus on what you may have an opportunity to change. If you have a longer window, then you can focus on some of the things like bat speed or rotational acceleration, because those are a little bit harder to change with strength or how you move. If you've got a little bit of time before you want to start cleaning some stuff up, clean up some of the contact stuff. If your on-plane efficiency is low, try and get that up there. If your attack angle is negative, like try and get it slightly positive and going from that side. So hopefully that wasn't just a ton. That's just kind of my thoughts right there. Again, I will send Ryan the PowerPoint so that we can distribute it in fashion. There's my Twitter. There's my email. Again, thanks so much for having me on, guys. Super appreciate it. That's all I got.
Thanks, Kyle. A couple quick questions. Do you have a couple more minutes, or you got to run?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What type of assessment do you recommend? It was in the group chat. Jordan, you could unmute yourself and maybe elaborate on that too, if you want to.
Yeah. So I saw you at ABCA, and we talked actually a little bit, and I would like to do an assessment weekly, especially in season, to neglect that kind of slump type material. How would you attack the assessment? Would it be BP style or machine style? And are we just trying to find their baseline, like, of what they are consistently?
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say to that is it should be, whatever the assessment is, it should be consistent. So if you're doing machine and it's a certain velocity or there's some sort of mixture into it, make the assessment the same, because as soon as the data changes too much, then you can't necessarily track those things over. I'm a huge fan of like as close to game like high intent as possible. So if this is like a full machine fastball curveball thing, even if it's just like velo off of a hack attack or something like that, that's my preferred route. But with that, you got to be a lot cleaner in your ability to keep that test the same. If they're going to get fastballs and curveballs, make sure they get the right amount so you can do the decision thing. If it's going to be some velo, make sure it's pretty much the same, or you're mixing in location. Now, the other side of that is if I weren't going to be able to do that very well, then I would take a step back and go more the consistency route instead of the in-game route. So I would do some sort of very controlled front toss where there's certain locations and go from there. You can do a little bit of like really quick, so you're closer, or you throw it a little bit harder to get some of the reaction there. But those are the two routes I would take. I know one organization values BP very much because their BP throwers can literally paint it wherever they want. They track those. That's a little bit of each world, but I think consistency is the one thing that I would make sure that I hone in on. And then I like to fall more towards like the high intent game like side.
I'm doing it.
Does that help answer your question? I'm happy to dive into anything else too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate it. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Any other questions? I don't know if I know chat open.
Yeah, there was another one from Joe. In live setup, which metric layout do you use?
Yeah, so let me go back here. In the live screen, this is actually my favorite setup. So I know my second favorite would probably be just the plain connection rotation PCR scores, and then I would blow up the one that I'm kind of focusing on. But the reason I like this one so much is bat speed and rotational acceleration are side by side. That's like my power profile. Down here, attack angle and on-plane efficiency. And then the early connections are both down here. I like early connection way more than connection at impact. I think that connection impact really helps you with some context. But if you wanted to get rid of these and want to add one in that you really liked, I would replace connection impact with something that you may prefer. But to me, this is like the impact metric, the swing metric, and then down here is kind of like what I care about. And that's early connection. And then for connection and impact, I put that one there too.
Awesome. And then Scott says, I assume a player can go back and update the type of session after the fact.
In our system, no. As soon as there is tag, you can't go back and update it. So that's why this nice little flow is kind of created. You set your context, you set your layout, and then you start your practice. Super important. Just go in there, set the context. If you do offline swings, you can just put the bat on, hit all day, or hit in whatever environment it may be. And then when you download the offline swings, you can select this throughout the process. That's something hopefully we'll be able to clean up in our software soon, but that tagging is super important.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. Yeah, you said you kind of be in Slack, so be on the lookout for those answers. If you miss a tag with Slack, you can just scroll up. You can see the last 10,000 messages. If we surpass that, we'll figure out a way to get those archived. Can you discuss how to change bat types in the app? I'll go over that at the end. It's pretty simple, unless you have a easy graphic, Kyle. But that's a pretty simple question that I can talk about at the end if you want.
Yeah, I don't have a great graphic for that. Okay,
cool. We can go over that at the end. The other thing I'll do at the end too, if you guys want to see my process and kind of how I go through Blast, it's basically how we use it is everybody's kind of using it a little bit differently, I think. And Kyle touched on all that stuff that's really important to there, but I can kind of show you our process as well. It's really not much different, but it kind of shows a workflow of what we do with each kind of individual hitter as well too. So if that's helpful for you guys, if not, you guys can jump off the call at the end because that's not scheduled. Want to be respectful of your time. When to change bat length and weight. Aaron Chamberlain is going to talk about that on his bat fitting call as well. So that'll be, I think that's tomorrow. I don't remember the exact date. It's either tomorrow or next Wednesday. I can't remember. With that being said, what we'll do is we'll get into kind of our hitting workout. Kyle, if you could you change me back to the host? I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of messed it up. Sorry. I wasn't sure how to give presentation rights. It was like the blue dots, and I just said make host.
Rename spotlight. Let me see what I can do here. I don't have an option. Oh, there we go. Stop sharing.
Cool. Is it on my 3 dots in my video?
3 dots.
Like if you go up to like my video, there's like a mute button to mute me, and then like 3 dots.
Yeah. Yeah, I see mute my audio, stop my video, pin video, spot video, hide self.
All right, cool. Well, that's fine. I don't have anything to share for this. What I am going to do is I'm going to post kind of our workout in the chat. So if you guys miss out, I know yesterday people were asking about rep schemes and things like that. So I'm going to post it ahead of time, just in case I cut out or you guys can't hear me, and you guys can follow along with that best we can. Coaches, I'll kind of go over some of the whys for doing some of this stuff. Players, I'm going to just try to knock it out. Most of our rep schemes are a little bit low today because I added in some different things, and I'm trying to fit all this into a certain time block. So don't feel like these are necessarily the perfect rep schemes. If it's something you want to do after the call or you want to keep going, you can up these as much as you want. You could do a whole nother circuit with these. This is just kind of a way for you to be creative. So we talked yesterday about kind of being your own coach, and then in the Slack, we talked about how players kind of get access to this stuff, and they don't always necessarily kind of be creative and put their own workouts together. So here are some options for you guys to be able to do that. And I'll hit enter right now. It should send it all. Perfect. So this is just kind of the warm-up piece, and then I'll take you guys through some hitting stuff as well. If you guys need to see me better, there is a way to change your view so you can only see me. I think it's like spotlight view through there, so you're not looking through a kind of a tiny looking glass. And we'll go from there. So bear with me as we kind of go through this. My sheet so I don't forget. Can't see me like that. Sorry about that. All right, can you guys still hear me? Thumbs up. Are we good? Perfect. Awesome. All right, so the first thing, we're going to get some blood flowing. This is going to be super, super basic. You guys should all know how to do this. We're just going to do 25 jumping jacks. So players, I'll kind of wait for you guys to get going. Seeing some guys standing up in here. Perfect. Awesome. I'll do 25 jumping jacks. I'll do it with you. Be kind of quiet. We can count it out or talk or do whatever, so it's not so awkward. This one's more for the players. Just getting some blood flowing here. Trying to make sure we're going to swing hard today, so I don't want to break any backs, things like that. Make sure you guys count all the way to 25. Don't cheat like me. That's what I need to be on the floor for. All right, awesome. All right, so this next one, This is kind of a staple in our program, so I'm going to hopefully be able to be seen here. We call these prone pelvic tilt. The only reason I don't really have a great name for them, but we're working on our pelvic tilt at the very end. If you guys are still curious, I can show you kind of a graphic on kind of how we measure this with 4D motion. One thing that we think is kind of important throughout the swing is basically to be able to control our pelvis underneath our shoulders. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our feet completely flat in the ground. We're going to lay backwards, and we're going to completely relax. Can you guys also see me? Thumbs up. Do I need to scoot out a little bit more? All right. So this is these out of the way. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to inhale for a 3-second hold. I'm going to kind of relax my arms. I'm going to inhale for a 3-second hold. And when I do that, I'm going to try to bring my shoulders down towards my hip, creating an arch in my back. So I want to be able to kind of control my pelvis and kind of almost like slide it down, creating an anterior tilt this direction. So you'll see kind of an arch in my back, 3-second hold while I'm inhaling. And then what I want to do is I want to suck my belly button to my spine using my pelvis, trying to take the top of my pelvis and bring it closer to my shoulders. The other way I've heard this described is trying to take extension cords. If you have an extension cord on your belt buckle and an extension cord on your belly button, you're trying to basically get these to move together while keeping your feet flat in the ground. We do this for another 3-second hold while I'm exhaling. So the first part of this is a 3-second inhale, 2, 3, and then a 3-second exhale. And I'm trying to bring these two extension cords back together, my belly button and belt buckle, taking my pelvis and essentially tipping it this way, forward and backwards with these 3-second holds. We program that 10 times, 3 seconds. It should take about a minute to do. So players, if you guys are through there, 3-second inhales, 3-second exhales through there. Let you guys kind of get caught up there. And then the other thing, I was doing this in the mirror today to practice, and it did not feel very good. So I apologize for the lack of demonstration on this side of things, but this is something we really like. We've done it sitting in a chair on a stool, and we've also done it standing. So bats are rolling around everywhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the bat in our shoulders, and we're actually going to just keep our hips square. So I don't want to see them turning this way, but I do want my shoulders to move. So I'm going to turn to the right, side bend down, come all the way over. And then when I get to here, same thing. Now I'm going to side bend down and rotate this way. So I'm working on opening up the thoracic spine, working on some side bends, some kind of moves to activate my core, my upper back through here. And this is just kind of movement prep, getting my body ready to make some specific moves throughout the swing. Trying to stabilize my hips as much as I possibly can. Do that for about 15 seconds. The reason I don't have specific rep schemes for that particular one and some of the other ones that we do is I want it to feel good. So if it's something where a player needs to go a little bit longer, that's totally okay. If it's something where they want to go shorter, that's okay too. The range of motion isn't necessarily important because everybody's mobility is going to be a little bit different there. We're just trying to wake it up. We're not necessarily trying to stretch it. We're trying to activate it from that side of things. Next thing is going to be bird dogs. So this is a pretty common stability exercise. It's really easy. I programmed this in today's for just because of the environment that we're in. A lot of us are stuck at home. There's a couple different ways to do these. The easy way is to be on hands and knees. The one thing I don't want to see a ton of is this big anterior tilt this way. I want to be able to control my pelvis and control my core. Also, I don't want to see a big punch there. So I want to be able to suck my belly button to my spine, create a nice flat back without being overly, without huge anterior tilt. When I talk about these things too, I know I'm using anterior and posterior tilt. I apologize. I'm basically talking about getting my pelvis forward. That would be posterior tilt. Backwards would be like an anterior tilt. So if you think of the load and the swing, when you're loading, you create a little bit of that anterior tilt. When you come underneath, you're creating that posterior tilt. So coming forward and going backwards. So in this one, I don't want to see my pelvis go backwards too much. Create a nice flat back. We're going to do 8 on each side. We're going to go left arm out, right leg back. When I do this, I'm trying to tighten my core. I'm trying to tighten my right glute. When I flip sides, it's going to be about a 1.5 second hold. Same thing. And I don't want to see too much wobbling this way. This is just to activate different parts of my body through there. We're going to do 5 on each side just for time purposes. So players, you guys can knock that out. If you guys fall behind, the workout's on here. Awesome. Great job, guys. Good work. All right, the next one I'm going to do is going to be lateral lunges. I'm pretty particular on this one. Guys at the facility, kind of like they know I'm a Nazi about this. Like form is key. It's really, really simple, and guys cheat on it all the time. So the first thing I want to do is I want to think about keeping my toes straight. So I don't want to have my toes open up. If my toes have to open up, that means I went too far. So I'm going to start just in a regular neutral position. I'm going to lunge to the side. My toes are going to stay straight. I'm going to sink back in as far as I can, basically stretching this leg and hinging into my right hip. When I do this, I don't want to see my knee get outside my foot. Working on the hinge down is what I want to feel this way. I'm obviously stretching here too, but I'm more concerned about the hinge. The other thing I can do is I can pick up my toes. So I'm working on driving through my heels and not necessarily getting on my toes and leaning forward this way. As you guys note, I don't know if you guys can see in the video, but I don't know if you guys can see my feet. I can pick up my toes when I do this. Then what I'll do is I'll come all the way back to the middle. I'll do the other side. And again, same thing. I want the knee on the inside of my foot. I want to be able to pick up my toes. I'm working on the hinge. This is really important if we were to look at force plate data, our ability to create torque in our load, and kind of like loss of space, things like that. What's up, buddy? Thanks for hanging out. With that, kind of the next phase is going to be skater jumps. Guys, your knees getting on the outside of your foot. Make sure that you're driving through your heels and you're sinking back, hinging back, not letting your chest go too far forward here. If your toes can't stay straight, typically you went a little bit too far, more worried about the hinge and driving through the heel here. Tough to watch everybody. Definitely some improvement on different movement stuff. Guys, the other thing you can do for this is watch yourself in the mirror. Even if you don't do a ton of them, you grab a mirror, look at yourself in the mirror. If it looks weird or if it doesn't look athletic, you guys can auto adjust. So one thing I say all the time is you guys have live video cameras in your house. They're just mirrors. You guys can see exactly what you're doing. Great to develop proprioception. Great to develop proprioception is the awareness of your body. So basically being able to feel yourself and see yourself at the exact same time. Love mirror work for stuff like that. The next thing is skater jumps. So I've seen these done a couple different ways. The first way I've seen them done is where guys are just trying to go as fast as possible, getting off. I want to go as far as possible, and I want to be as explosive as possible. We're going to do 5 each leg. And what I want to do, I want to have that exact same hinge that I just kind of practiced in my lateral lunge. I'm going to hinge here, keep the knee inside of my foot, and I'm going to go as far as I can and try to stick it. You notice for me, I didn't stick it, but I tried to get back into my hinge. I used my back foot for balance. What I didn't do is I didn't fall and then quit. Okay, so when you guys get really good at this, it'll be as far as you can stick, as far as you can stick, and you guys will be able to kind of do that. So 5 each side. It's about explosiveness and distance here, not about speed. Explosiveness and distance. You guys knock out 5 of those. If you guys lose your balance, that's all right. Get it again and go off. When we do this at the facility too, we typically ask players who their favorite hitters are. And then we kind of allow them to show us on video where they see some of these concepts in their favorite hitters. And then I always ask them, did you pick that hitter? Did I pick that hitter? And, you know, obviously they answer, well, I picked him. So that way it kind of goes to show like we didn't have an agenda. We weren't just like cherry picking people or cherry picking videos to support our point. That's kind of goes into the last year's Slack conversation, as well as how do you kind of let players, you know, figure some stuff out on their own, kind of leading them towards a certain answer. But there's lots of times too where they're like, I don't see it. And then we have a conversation about it. And we kind of go from there. And a lot of times too, like if a hitter doesn't do anything, it's a great point to say, hey, look, there's no absolutes. So you can kind of pick and choose, you know, where you want to go. All right, torso twist. These ones are really easy. You don't have to grab a bat for it. I'm going to. I just basically put my hands here and then just bend over. I want to get a really good hinge here. Here, I do want a little bit of that, what I call anterior, or we're referring to anterior tilt, getting that butt out, getting a little bit of curve in my back this direction. And all I want to do is keep my hips stable and just rotate this way. Like I said, we're about to swing kind of hard. So I want to loosen up my back for about 15 seconds. For me, I keep my elbows bent, and I want to also feel this in my scap. So when I get to here, I feel tension in my scap and in my lat a little bit as I'm going this way while my chest is pushing. So this elbow's pulling, this one's pushing, I'm allowing the rotation through my core and torso. Just loosening up our back. Nobody's getting hurt today. This one's pretty common among strength coaches too, except for they just have them doing it with their arms for baseball players, rotational athletes. For me, it's pretty important and detailed. Some of the positions we get in, which a lot of athletes, you even see if you look on the video, cheated the part where I said getting to kind of that hinge and that tilt. So it's kind of important to teach that stuff early on from a facility standpoint. That's kind of our onboarding phase, is we want to make sure guys really understand why they're doing something so they know the importance of all the details. From a big, large group setting, it's a little bit more challenging, but typically, you'll have more staff members and stuff like that, depending on the level you're at. I know college is a little bit different because of budget restrictions and obviously the limit on rules in general on how many coaches you guys can have, and go from there. Tanner, great questions. Do we go for height at all or strictly distance? Both, I guess. You could go forever. It's about power. So wherever you think you get them both power from. Yes, this is a Win Reality hat. Big Win Reality fans. All right, awesome. All right, so now this one's a little bit more challenging. If you have a variety of different bats with you, get the shortest bat that you have. If you don't have a short bat, we can get creative and shorten it up, just kind of that same position we were just in. I'm going to take my short bat, put both palms on the outside. This one's going to be a little bit more challenging. Coaches, we usually do this with either a water ball, a water bag, or a medicine ball. Obviously, with the restrictions we have, everybody being at home, we're transitioning this into just a bat and kind of a movement. What we're trying to do is start and stop our body as fast as possible. You guys have probably seen things about, all the fancy terms about it's the spinal fascial sling and all that stuff, and the reciprocal body parts and things like that. Put it simply, is one side of our body starting, the other side of our body stopping, and we're going both directions, creating a faster contraction and faster relaxation in our muscles. Players, the best way I can describe this is your core does this every time it basically tries to create a pattern. If you guys take your arm and you just flex your bicep and relax it real quick, we're trying to make that contraction, which is basically your bicep flexing, and the relaxation, when it turns off, so to speak, that's the relaxation. The faster you can do that, the more balance that you're going to have. So when you see guys wobble, they're basically not able to contract and relax that way on that side of things from a physical perspective. There's also the mental perspective of how their brain and in between their ears and all the fluid and all that, other stuff that goes into that. But from a physiology perspective, balance comes from being able to start and stop your body on each side of your spine. So this one's kind of weird. We're going to stand on one leg, single leg. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold this out. I have a little bit of bend in my elbows. If you guys can see, a little bit of bend in my elbows. I'm going to go as hard as I can to the left and stop sharply. Then I'm going to go hard as I can back to the middle and stop sharply again. Hard as I can to the right, stop sharply, and then back to the middle. I would count that as 1. So we're going to do 5 each leg. Other side, same exact thing. I would go hard to the right this time. This is my right leg. Hard to the left, or hard to back to the middle. Hard to the left, and hard to the middle. The key here is as hard as you possibly can and stopping as sharp as you possibly can. If you're going just kind of here and coming back, you're not doing very much. You're basically just doing a glorified single leg torso rotation like we just did. So it's the start and stop that creates the energy there. You're not going to feel it as much with just a regular bat. The next piece after that would be like a medicine ball. The very best would be like a water bag or a water ball, kind of like AJ talked about yesterday, but creating that instability while we're starting and stopping. So that's kind of my warm-up. Players, hopefully you guys are sweating a little bit. Rafi, yeah, I believe everything we did, I think the weight was on the inside of the foot. I don't remember exactly which one that was. Sorry, I just saw that. For the recording, I should have done this. All right, so the next couple of drills that we're going to do, you're going to take your lightest bat that you have. So I've got this yellow wiffle ball bat. I sent a picture in the Slack so you guys could be prepared if you guys had something like this. The lightest bat you have, I'm going to pretend this is a PVC pipe for today. We typically use 1/4 inch PVC pipes that are pretty flimsy, the cheap ones, so they can have a little bit more whip. The nice ones that you actually put in your house are a little bit stiffer. and they're harder to kind of whip through. They're also a little bit heavier, so they don't have exactly kind of what we're looking for here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do what I call stop swings. So again, we're talking about accelerating and stopping the body on both sides. We're going to do 3 at each level. So we're going to have a high pitch, a middle pitch, and a low pitch. What I typically see, even though we start at the top, is players put the high pitch way too high. They put it at their chin or their eyes. So when they end up doing these stop swings, they're all the way up here. Well, that's, of course, way too high. They're never going to swing at that pitch, or hopefully they don't. So we want to make sure that we know what the top of the strike zone is. So depending on the level you're at or what you want your kids to kind of think about the top of the zone, I want to make sure this is the very top of the zone for my guys, just kind of beneath my sternum. If we're at the kind of the pro level through here, I'm going to lower it just a little bit. And as we move up, I'm going to lower it even more. So for me, for the general purposes, just kind of in your sternum, beneath the letter, so to speak, this is the top of the zone for me. So I'm going to set that plane right away. And I'm going to get in my stance, and I'm going to try to stop at contact. Now, when I stop at contact, I'm looking for a position that's, if you kind of look for my open side, where I'm kind of still bent, I'm kind of still connected. I haven't made that same mistake, where I'm kind of basically being able to take my barrel to the top of the zone here. This is kind of what I'm looking for from the open side. What I'm not looking for is this, that, things like that, so I can stay connected as I'm making my turn, and my vertical bat angle is going to be parallel with my shoulders. So from the front view, the top of the zone is going to look like this, and you should kind of hear kind of that whip if your bat's light enough. So we'll do 3 of them at the top. If you guys are using your camera, it's a really good angle. I like to use a mirror for this as well, so I can see my plane, shoulder plane, and my bat plane. Now we'll go middle. I want to do the same thing. I want to set my plane. So this will be the middle pitch that I want to swing at. We'll go 3. Coaches, where you can help players with this too, is you can kind of show them and give them feedback and have them freeze. And if they're, let's say they're like this, you say, hey, is that the position you want to be in? Look at your arms, kind of maybe put them in this position. This can be a motor learning tool too, outside of just starting and stopping, creating acceleration and deceleration patterns. Middle. And then we'll go low. So 3 on the low. Same thing. I want to set this, depending on the level, I can go below my knees, right at my knees, just above the knees, just so I can set my plane. When we talk about balance and being able to stop and things like that, we want to be balanced from, throughout this position, our power position as we're driving through. From there, and this promotes a lot of starting and stopping. The light bat allows us to accelerate and decelerate while really focusing on our core and our positioning. All right, so the last one that we'll do with that is one thing I like to add to this are called call-outs. So players, if you guys can get in your stance, if you guys are participating, I can't necessarily see all you guys, but if you guys are participating, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call out when you guys get into your load, high, middle, low. You guys missed the timing a little bit just because we're not all together and I can't see everybody. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a countdown. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, high. So make sure you start your load when you need to. If you have a smaller load, maybe start it on 2. If you've got a really big load, start it on 3. If you got a really small load or no load and you're just kind of this guy, you can start it on 1. But what I want is basically 3, 2, 1, high. 3, 2, 1, low. And basically you guys can react and work on your pitch plane through there. We'll do this 5 times. 3, 2, 1, high. You guys can check your posture, see if you guys are able to get there. All right, we'll go again. 3, 2, 1, low. Good. Try to be as fast as you can when you hear high, high, low, middle, wherever we're going. 3 more. 3, 2, 1, high. Good. 2 more. 3, 2, 1, middle. Oh, that was a homer. That one was down the middle. You guys all hit homers. Good job. Positive affirmations. All right, last one. 3, 2, 1, low. Nice. Good work, guys. All right. The length bar, typically we go about 4.5 to 5 feet just to give it a little bit more whip at the end. The question was, do I want the 1/4 inch PVC pipe to be length measure of their bat? I want it a little bit longer so they can feel the whip. I also feel like it's better for shoulder plane. It really kind of forces them to focus on their shoulder plane rather than manipulating their hands or their elbows, simply just doing this, and they can really work on their side bend and their torso versus just manipulating the wrists and elbows to change the barrel angle. So I like to be about 4.5, 5 feet. I think ours are 5 feet. Nate, you bought a bunch of those. They're 5 feet, right? If you're on here, you can just unmute yourself, say yes or no. I think they're all 5 feet.
Yeah,
right.
They're all 5 feet.
Perfect. Lost my sheet. All right. Now the fun stuff starts. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our heavy bat. If you guys have a heavy bat, we're supposed to have 3 bats today, a light bat, a middle bat, and a heavier bat. If you weren't able to create a heavier bat or you didn't have a heavy bat, just a weight donut since we're doing dry swings, anything to make it heavier. I'll post in the link, or I'll post in Slack today a couple options to create your own weighted bats. Also, I'll post a link to purchase your own super speed sluggers. I did not get to kick back any of this stuff. I'm literally sending you guys links to the direct stores. So there's no code or anything like that. It's just kind of information we're trying to share. So we're going to take our heaviest bat that we have in our set of 3. For me, this was my son's wooden bat. Fortunately, it's not super heavy, but it's heavier than the fungo and the wiffle ball bat. So we're going to do 45-degree swings. Now, I teach these a little bit different. I always get a lot of weird looks when I talk about this because I teach it just a little bit different. If this was the center of home plate, thinking the pitchers directly were kind of my bat's pointing, I'm going to stand 45 feet. I want to focus on keeping my toes straight and my hips locked with my toes. So a lot of people I see when they do this, they kind of come this way. And the way I teach it, I think there's some value in that drill. But what I'm looking for here is being able to control my pelvis and control my torso around my pelvis. So I want to lock my pelvis in. I want to squeeze my belly button to my spine. And I want to just turn my shoulders by themselves as far as they'll go. And then from here, I want to activate my core. And I want to create a pelvic tilt that we worked on in the very beginning, and I want the body to do this. So that's going to promote not only side bend to get to the zone this way, it's going to allow my core to control my pelvis and my torso instead of just coming this way and throwing my whole body together. Like I said, I think there's some value in this drill. I think that depending on what you're trying to work on, for today's purpose of dry swings, I'm really trying to focus on the movement of controlling my pelvis and controlling my core and my torso independent of each other. And also being able to create a little bit of a separation. You could also do this drill with a medicine ball where you're just here and then focusing on pelvic tilt, keeping your heel grounded, driving through the ground. It promotes a little bit of front leg bracing as well. So that's how I teach it. That's why I teach it that way. Toes straight, hips straight, turn around as far as you can. And then the first move is with the core and the pelvis. You'll see my bat naturally start to slot. And then all I'm going to do is do 5 of these. This way. With this too, when the actual ball's coming, even though you're angled, it promotes direction, because if you go this way, you're never going to hit the ball that's coming towards you this way. So opening up a little bit promotes direction with your pelvis, direction with your side bend, direction with your torso, being able to maintain that going that direction. Then you could always go a little bit less, a little bit more if you guys are doing front toss or even machine work with something like this. Let you guys do that 5 times. I like it for dry swings though, especially because we aren't rotating everything in and getting it back locked out. It really focuses on the core. I explain that to guys who maybe are maybe don't really buy in necessarily. I explain it as kind of a more of a lifting drill than anything, even though we're doing it. It's just more fun to do it with a bat in your hand and hitting a ball than it is throwing a med ball. 5 of those. All right. Next one, another kind of weird one. I call these roll-in swings. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a step forward with my rear leg. So I'm right-handed. So my rear leg is my right leg. If I was left-handed, my rear leg would be my left leg. So I'm right-handed. I'm going to take a step forward. I'm going to maintain, again, a straight line with my knee and my foot. My next move is, again, going to be completely open. As I make that move, I'm going to control my torso, take my hips out of the equation. I really like this drill because it's not about creating more separation. It's about self-organizing to create separation that you naturally have in your body. So a very hypermobile mover might be able to get all the way turned around this way and look really kind of goofy, where as a tight mover, might only, similar to what you'll see me, is it doesn't look sexy. It looks like it gets stuck, it looks like I get tight, but what it's doing is it's making me self-organized for the right amount of thoracic rotation for my body, while my core and my pelvis have to stabilize. So again, this is all about creating stabilization for the torso to finish the swing. Here, all the way through, we call those roll-ins. When we do flips with these, it's a great direction drill, again, because a lot of kids, when they come this way and they start to swing, this is the move they want to make. So we're feeding the mistake, and we're forcing them to maintain their direction, create space. Let's still allow their pelvis to turn this way while their torso lags behind and the direction through the ball straight ahead. So another great direction drill. You will see a lot of kids do this their first time. We're feeding that mistake. We're forcing them to organize in a sense with external cues to hit the ball that way. Plyo balls are great for this drill if you're not doing dry swings. Anytime we're doing dry swings, we want to be going max effort, trying to really build the engine. If you're visualizing the ball coming at you, it could be a great direction drill too, with limited space or limited resources. Do those 5 times. Typically, we'll go 6 to 8, or we'll go a couple different sets, depending on how much time we have or how many kids we have in the group. Typically, when we're doing this in a group setting, if we've got 4 kids in a group, they're prescribed different drills. So maybe 2 kids have rolling swings, 1 kid has a 45, and another kid has a skater jump with a bat in their hand. They're doing a variety of different things. Their movement prep's individualized. Everything's individualized. We teach them kind of all of it, and then we program it accordingly in kind of sniper stations to kind of make sure we get everybody's needs taken care of. So these are just kind of some things you can be doing. These are some drills I thought of that aren't going to hurt anybody, that are going to help a little bit. Obviously, we can't individualize it on a Zoom call. All right. Last thing before we get into kind of the fun stuff is what I call visualization patterns. I actually used to do this on deck. And what I would do is in the hole on deck is I get the timing down. I use the on deck to really just make sure I understood when I wanted to start my move, when I wanted to get started. I wasn't necessarily trying to, you see a lot of kids like the pitcher will release and they take their swings. That's obviously not the speed that the ball is going to be coming in at. So what you can do is you can focus on his release point, time up when you want to start based on when he's releasing the ball. If you look at an airplane in the sky, it looks this big and it looks like it's barely moving. When you're not at that level, staying in the batter's box, you're not exactly timing it up that way. So a lot of people end up wasting their time in the on-deck circle. I want to use the on-deck circle to figure out when I want to start my move, when he's releasing the ball, and then getting ready to hit. So the way that I would do that is I would make sure that in the hole, or even if I was 4th up, I'd really make sure I'd be kind of just, when do I want to start? When do I want to start? I wouldn't have to make my full move, just when I want to start, control my forward move from there. And then what I would do is I would have my visualization. I'd be visualizing when I'm starting. I'd say, okay, if he throws it up and in, up and in, I figure out where that is, up and in. And I want to make that move. I want to get to there. Okay, up and in. And I take my up and in swing. And I'd say, okay, if he's going to go up and middle, okay, up and middle, how do I get there? Okay, there. I'm going to take my up and middle swing. And I work on my contact points. I visualize these, and I kind of have, almost see all these different fastballs. I'm always sitting fastball. And then from my approach standpoint, the other thing I would do is I got older, or as we kind of tell guys who need to lock it in more, maybe don't visualize all 9 of them. Maybe visualize like the spot you're looking. Okay, I'm looking middle out. I'm looking middle out, right on my thigh. I just want to visualize what I'm going to do to that pitch if I get it. Boom, I want to be right there. Okay. I'll be right there. All right, full swing now. And then I take my full swing to that pitch. So you can do it a variety of different ways. For the drill today, I had it programmed just to visualize each one. Up and in, up and middle, up and out, middle in, middle, middle out, down and in, down and middle, and middle away, or down and away. So depending on how you guys want to do that as you guys are programming that stuff. But a lot of golfers will do that. You'll see them kind of make those what they call imprints, is they'll step up, they'll make their imprint, and then they'll go back and they'll actually hit it. And then after they hit it, a lot of times they'll imprint again. So we can do that in the on-deck circle, take some motor learning skills from golf to kind of get ourselves ready to hit. Once you guys are done with that, we'll get into the fun stuff. Little overtime. All right, so what we're gonna do is we typically use the super speed suckers for these, but since you guys not everybody has those, or the Longworth speed sticks, we're just gonna kind of use what we have. I've got my yellow wiffle ball bat to start. I'm gonna take 3 swings as hard as I can. With these, I'm not necessarily worried about mechanics. If I want to kind of visualize my path and kind of focus on it, but if it's kind of not good, that's okay. I'm trying to open up kind of some pathways to teach my body to move faster, so it memorizes how to go faster. It's also going to have to memorize how to slow down. If you've got a problem slowing down, if you've got an athlete who tends to do one of these and really fall off or loses balance, challenge them to hold on with 2 hands. trying to make that. So now they're going to work on some deceleration patterns in other parts of their body. As those get stronger, they'll be able to go faster and faster and go through there. So this is not just about acceleration. This is about accelerating and decelerating. We're going to do both sides of the body so that we work on not only our accelerators on one side, but our decelerators on the other, and just keep us more balanced for better reciprocal starts and stops, which is going to make us faster in general as well. We'll take our light bat. We'll go as fast as we possibly can. This, as fast as you possibly can, guys, does not look like this. As fast as you possibly can, especially like once you guys get good at this, looks like this. Like, give it some effort. If you're not challenging yourself in that, you're not going as fast as you can, you're going as fast as you think you can. And we got to be able to open up that kind of neuromuscular pathway to be able to do this, especially in dry swings when we're swinging a light bat. Because now when I get heavier, I'm going to naturally stay more balanced. Your brain is so smart. You got to give it credit for what it wants to do. It knows it wants to hit the ball. It knows it wants to stay balanced. But we have to challenge our environment in a way that allows us to do that better than just saying like, hey, stay balanced, or training slow just for the sake of balance. So we'll go 3 swings on the right side if you haven't done it already, as fast as you can. 3 swings on the left side, as fast as you can. I'm not a lefty, sorry if that was ugly. A lot of players get uncomfortable on the left side because they think like I'm judging their swing, and I'm not at all. All right, then you'll move up to your middle bat. For me, that's a fungo today. Same exact thing. We're going to go as fast as we possibly can. Trying to watch my ceiling too. Sorry, my swing plane looks weird. And then 3 on the left. Let's get a lefty one. See if I can break my back. Three on each side. So you guys are done with that. We'll go into our last one, which is the exact same thing. Just take the heaviest bat you have today. Again, the ounces are a little bit different. They're not that much different. It's okay. We're still working on power. I'll teach you guys in the Slack channel how to kind of make your own bats, or where you guys can buy some weighted bats. On that topic, really fast, I don't think weighted bats when you're hitting a ball are for bat speed. I think weighted bats and varied implements when you're hitting a ball is for better movement patterns. It's challenging your body with different implements, and therefore typically your bat speed will improve because you're learning how to move better. However, if you're trying to just build general bat speed, do dry swings like this and take the distraction of the ball out of the equation. Because like we talked about, your brain's really smart. It knows it wants to hit the ball. It will naturally slow down to try to hit it, even if you're convincing yourself it's not that important. So when you're trying to really build the engine, do it without the ball. If you're okay with movement patterns, and then that's where the weighted bats where you're hitting a ball. So it's never a weighted bat's fault if you're not creating the desired result of what you're looking to do. This won't necessarily create the most efficient movement patterns. It will create faster movement patterns. So blending this in with something that will create movement patterns, whether that's something slow and motor learning and using a mirror and all the T drills and thinking about your swing and internal cues, whatever you guys believe in to create better movement patterns, this is to move faster within those movement patterns. Weighted bats with a ball is to just generate the natural, natural movements from there. Reed, if you're left-handed, do just your strong side first, and then your right side after that, so you can do both sides. If you're a switch hitter, you're doing both sides anyways. So that's kind of my view on weighted bats. So hopefully we did our last 3 with the heavy bat, righty and lefty, or lefty then righty, as fast as you can. I'm getting kind of tired. It's kind of the goal. If you guys aren't tired after this, you did it wrong. From there. And then the very last one we're going to do is we're going to go our strong side. So righties on the right side, lefties on the left side. Take your light bat again. And this one is your absolute chaos swing. You got 3 absolutely chaotic, ridiculous swings as fast as you can. 3 sides on just your strong side, then you're done. If you want to make this harder, and this is kind of the first introduction to it, everything we just did can be done on our knees. So if you want to make this harder, if that was too easy for you, especially if you don't have different bat sizes, do it on your knees. And this is going to even improve your decelerators even more than if you were standing up. So just being here and just working just strictly the core, you guys can move it on your knees. You'll notice too, for me, when I do that, I naturally kind of want to fall forward, which happens a lot when we swing too. So it's going to help us create a little bit better posture depending on what you're working on. There's no necessarily right way or wrong way to do this. Get creative with your drills. That's kind of part of the sequencing that we use. Obviously, in quarantine, we're stuck to certain limited restrictions. That's all I have for hitting. Tunt, you want to jump in on some fielding stuff now?
Yeah, that'd be great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me pull you up real quick, and we'll do questions at the end.
Cool.
How do I take? What did I do for this? Okay. Let me pull up your
PowerPoint.
Yeah. If you want to introduce yourself while I do this, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me, Ryan, and thanks for putting this all together. Appreciate you guys kind of linking up and connecting. I know this is kind of the craziest of times, but with every problem, I think there's kind of always the opportunity. It's the way kind of perspective that you're looking at it. So any way that you guys can find a way to get better, one of them, kind of get in, listen to a few guys on here. Any way that you can kind of ask questions and get better. But I'll kind of dive into it. Just going over some infield stuff. I'm from Illinois originally. Went to junior college, Oakton Community College, and then went to West Virginia University to play. From there, got drafted with the San Francisco Giants, and then I've been kind of bouncing around different jobs from JUCO down to Texas, Florida, Georgia, and then back to Ohio University, where I'm at now. But with the time that we have, it's tough to get everything in, but I want to make sure that you guys have the most value while you guys are at home and can do some things, just with everyday kind of tools that you have. But for me, I mean, there's 4 things that you guys really need to kind of hone in, and I got a few of them on the PowerPoint, but it's your tasks, your throwing, your tempo, and then your target. Your task is just going to be your throwing and your receiving, which we'll do a lot today, and a lot of stuff you can do on your own or with one person up against the wall. Infield's kind of a cool thing because you can have a lot of different variability and different things that you can do. Your throwing, so your different throwing slots, I'll touch on that today. Won't go over too extensive, but you guys can do some things where you're at. And then tempo, so just understanding your internal clock, meaning how fast the guy's running, how hard's the ball hit. Everything's going to kind of influence that tempo, and it's going to be a quick, you guys want to move fast, get the ball. I mean, our whole goal is to get people out as an infielder in defense, but just making sure that we're moving at a good pace, but at a controlled pace. So it's moving really fast, but in a controlled pace. So what we'll dive into, just kind of, I liked what Ryan was kind of mentioning. I think it's really huge for your movement prep, your hip mobility, shoulder mobility, because a lot of the things that you need to do in throwing, fielding, hitting, you'll see kind of coincide. So the hip mobility is huge, but as you guys get it, I just collected a few things from around the house that I had, some tennis balls, and then I got my little mini glove as well. So we'll do some work with the mini glove and then also barehanded work. Just not to scuff up the wall or anything like that. I got like tennis balls or whatever you guys want to be doing. But for me, as you guys go into it, you can get a little bit, I'll try to back up a little bit here, but you'll go through, you just got your tennis ball here. And then as you go off the wall, it's just going to be a short hop right to us. We're going to start with one hand. All right. Now, the biggest thing with all of this is when you are going there and off that hop, making sure that your eyes are following the ball all the way in. The cue that I like to use is probably like your chin to your chest. All right. So each one right there, you'll just do 5 of each of those. Okay. And another one that I want to point out is make sure that with your glove, we're going to have palm open, fingers down. And wherever that's going to be going, kind of where your glove will be showing is wherever the ball is coming from relative to where the plate and where the guy's hitting it. All right, so you got your one hand, and then we'll go to our two hand. There's two different things with our two hand that I like to do. You got your short hop, and then you got your long hops. So there's two different transfers that we'll use. And that's kind of the thing that a lot of people talk about, like what should you do? The stick through, the funnel, and when and why or whatever it may be. For me, use both. I think that's a really, you need to use both to be in rhythm on time. Rhythm and timing is a huge, huge part. Just syncing up your hands with your feet. So as we get into this again, it's just going to be your two hands. We'll work the first one of just kind of going to the ball and then quarter turning our wrists so that we get to the center point of our body. All right, and then Ryan mentioned this earlier, proprioception and being aware of your body, but to be aware of the body is to work from a consistent slot, consistent spot, which usually goes to the middle. The reason I like to get the elbows out, work to the middle as well, it's kind of like a quarterback or whoever is going to be throwing. They're always going to be working from that middle so that they can be consistent. So now whenever we're doing any of our infield work, our catch work or anything like that, we're always going to work back to the middle, hopefully by the use of our feet, but if not, at least we're in a good position so we can be consistent and not feel rushed. And that kind of ties into your tempo. So the next ones that we'll do, you got your one hand short hops, 5. You got your two hand short hands, 5. So we're going to press through and then quarter turn it to the middle. And then the next one we'll do will be the funnel. All right. So the funnel is going to be as we catch the baseball, we're working it to the middle and then separating it out. Okay. So as we go through this, we'll walk through it again. Go one hand, make sure we bury our chin to our chest. And if you miss it, it's going to happen. All right. And then two hand quarter turn. Get the ball out of the glove just to make sure that we're transferring from that middle part and then going from there. And then the last one for a two-handed play, throw it more at like the base of the wall. That way you get a lower kind of trajectory on the ground ball, which is going to be more used more for the funnel. So if we're going here, and again, we're just working it to the middle. Our chin's going to our chest. We're getting the ball out. Elbows are going to be out. Okay. Some things I do want to touch on that is when we are getting into our positioning, we're starting on our knees right now, but as soon as what I like to think about is our knees are our feet. All right, so if our knees are our feet, we're a little bit outside the shoulder width, and then that's where we're going to be at for this part, and then we're going to hinge back so we get into that really good position. All right, so we went through the one hand, two hand push through, two hand funnel. We're now going to go to the side here. All right, and a lot of people kind of say forehand. I like to think of it more of our glove hand. So just stagger it a little bit. It doesn't need to be a full side, but just stagger it a little bit. Same concept. And Ryan did touch on with hitting again, our side bend. Okay, so even with this, we always want to get our eyes behind the glove, behind the ball, and make sure we're working in a line. If we work any other way, that gives us kind of room for things to go wrong. You know, a different variable that we're adding to the puzzle where we can just be simple and suave and smooth. All right, so then we'll go 5 from our forehand side. Again, we want to try and get it right when the ball hits the ground. Try to get that hop. So we're trying to cut down the space and the time. And as you notice it, my eyes are always going to be following and getting right behind the ball. For all of those ones, even on our forehand side, make sure that once you do catch it, we're working our stick. All right, so just stick it out in front. But then the next one, what I want you guys to do is you're going to go 5 again, same way, stick, but then quarter turn it to the middle. All right, just so you get in that habit of going back to the middle again and again. All right, and then from there, so we worked our middle, worked our glove hand side, and now we got our backhand side. All right, so for this one, same way staggered, I've kind of showed towards you guys so you can see it a little bit better. So I won't be able to throw it, but you guys can work on your own. What I did want to touch on is just with the backhand, we want to catch the baseball. We don't want to feel like we're stabbing at it or we're working from high to low, always low to high. But just making sure that I'm working in line. So my elbow is basically going to be flexed, but it's extension. All right, so this is going to work as an extension. So once I do get to the baseball and I make sure my feet are in line, all I'm going to be doing is extending to either the hop or create some adjustability or some variability, but it gives you some room and some air and not the feeling of coming up. Because once we start coming up, it changes our eye level, it changes our body position, which influences everything that we do. So when we are doing our backhand just on our knees, we're going to be throwing it again, but we want to make sure that we're getting low enough so that my eyes are getting behind the ball. When I'm catching it, I'm circling to it, pressing through, and then again, I'm going to quarter turn to the middle. All right, it'll make a lot more sense when you guys do get to your feet, because instead of feeling pushy and kind of extending a lot and then working in the middle, your feet are going to do a lot of that. All right, your feet are going to move so that everything else catches up to it. So everything's in rhythm with your hands and your feet. From there, just some different things you guys can do on the knees in a smaller, tighter spot, but start to alternate different things. And this is where you have a partner. They can be behind you throwing different types of balls, which can increase variability, just different tasks that you got to do. And that's where you guys can be creative on your own. There's one where if he's throwing it over, you know, it could be a short hop. It could be a short hop, get set to turn to double play. It could be a short hop, get set to throw to first. And then we'll kind of go over that in a second. But just alternating different things. So just alternating back and forth, getting the ball out, and then throw one up. All right, so right off the wall, instead of it being a ground ball short hop, we're going to throw it off the wall, and now it's our transfer. All right, now with our transfer again, I think that's kind of the simplest and easiest thing about defense, but it's also the hardest thing, and it's where we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and kind of perfecting it and creating daily habits and routines that we stay. I always thought about it as if it's simple, it's smooth. If it's when you're really herky-jerky movements or quick or rushed or, you know, things just don't feel right, that's when guys make mistakes in the infield. That's when guys make mistakes on defense, okay? So from there, kind of jump into it a little bit, just working our transfers. You can be on your knees for this one. All of these on the knee workouts for everyday drills, you can get on your feet. I just can't show it from this point of it, but from here, it's just gonna be off the wall, and we're just gonna work our deflection, but we're really working on getting to the middle. And then what I wanna do with our throwing is make sure that I pull the elbow back, kind of like a bow and arrow. All right, so pull that thing back so we get our scap protracted back. And then that way we set ourselves up to get in a better position from a throwing aspect. So first ones we'll do 5 where we're going to first base. So wherever we're kind of lined up, we'll be shortstop for right now. So we'll throw it off the wall, we'll catch, and then transfer and just make sure that I'm getting in line with where I think the first baseman would be. So whenever we're going here, boom. So the biggest thing is my shoulders being able to turn and rotate. All right, when we are doing this, especially in the infield, to turn a little bit easier, you're going to want to roll that shoulder down, turn it in. That way we can kind of cut down our angle a little bit better, which makes it a little bit easier to get on plane and set ourselves up to get in line for our target. The other one that I think about too, and I'm getting in line for that one, is that I want my lead arm or my glove hand to be down. The reason I say that is I want to make sure that it's kind of out of the way for me to make the throw. All right, so if I'm here kind of like some guys do, you get to see a lot of the guys that try to really come up and over, and they get up by the legs, they get inconsistent arm slots. So just from a consistency standpoint, that's where I kind of get glove hand down as we pull that bow and arrow back. All right, so that'll be towards the first base. And then you go double plays, and we'll go from the third base shortstop side, catch, boom. So each time, we're just gonna make sure that we're catching it, following the eyes all the way in, and then readjusting where my target is. So my target's kind of like setting my sights. That's how I kind of look at my shoulders. I'm gonna set my sights where I'm gonna go, and then go from there. All right, if you got a partner, you can mix it up, put a little variables in there, different balls, different tempos, different hops, and then go from there. On your feet, kind of stated, you can kind of repeat the routine. So let me readjust this real quick. All right, so you'll have your kind of one hand plays. Just make sure the eye gets behind and you work in a straight line. Our backhand plays where we're extending, working to the middle, and then go from there. So ones that I like to do when I get to my feet, because I think a lot of it with defense is your rhythm and your timing. So having my feet in timing with my hands, because we've all been there when your hands are working fast on your feet or vice versa, and everything just doesn't really line up how it should be. So the next one I kind of wanted to get into that you can kind of, I got four baseballs right now, but if you got some more room, you put these kind of in a line, stagger it with some room in between them. All right, I'll just do 2 for right now. So that's the room I got in my room right now. All right, but you're gonna start on the left side of the ball, or that line if you're gonna use a line. And it's just a quick move to our left, all right, to get it on my left eye. All right, so now when I say my left eye, the reason I do that is one, I wanna get it on my glove side. And if anything does happen, bad hop or anything like that, I have room to move. I have room to work and then make sure that I'm getting in a good position. If I start with the ball over in the middle or to my right side, I get a little handcuffed, I get a little stuck. All right. So just this easy one, just shuffle over and see, get to my eye, put the ball, that's your typical right, left field and throw. All right. And then what I can't really show today, but I did want to jump into, is our 2-step and then our 4-step. So kind of our foot patterns. With that being said, that's all going to depend on basically your tempo, how fast the runner is, what type of ground ball there is, and then you can kind of go from there. But as we get into it, you can kind of do some dry things. And I like what Ryan said, I use the mirror as well, just so you can see what you're doing. You have instant feedback of what it looks like, what it looks like and what it feels like to you. All right, so as you're going through any of these drills, just gonna be a hop over. You can be doing it from a mirror, making sure that I'm hinging back. I'm in a good athletic position. And then as I'm approaching the baseball, I have that out front off that left eye. And then as I'm getting to this part, being in rhythm, working to the middle with the elbows out. And then once I do get there, hands and feet work at the same tempo. Boom. So I get my feet underneath me as the ball is kind of, as I'm pulling that bow and arrow back. All right. And so now I'll kind of segue into, that was the 2-step. So 2-step, all it is you're going to hinge the hips back. So we're in a good position, activating our back side. Gloves out front. All right. Flatter back just to make sure we're at a good angle. If you guys have any issue, coaches, you kind of heard the butt down, flat back. Just make sure that they're getting into some sort of position where their hips are going back. So what I usually tell them to do is wherever that crease is, just push back and then sit your butt down, and then that'll get you in the good position. All right, so once I'm here, so we'll call out a 2-step. So 2, boom. If we go 4, if you got some more room than just in your room where you're at, 2, and then a 4-step, so 4, and then it's that extra shuffle. All right, so it's that gather, 2-step gather, and it's that extra shuffle added in between. And one thing you might have noticed there when I was going to the 4-step was just my rhythm again. You saw kind of a glove tap where a lot of coaches, and I know when I was younger, everybody said it to me too, don't pump your hand, don't do whatever they're trying to get me not to do. But for me, it's your rhythm. So if you can be in rhythm with your hands and your feet, which is what we're trying to do, and that's a natural occurrence, go ahead and do it. That's a way that we can get in rhythm and in time and on time to make an accurate throw. I'd say the only things that I didn't touch on, and I ran through a lot of that quick, but the one thing I did want to get to as well is just your different throwing positions. I think a lot of you guys know it, but when we are kind of over the top or throwing overhand, Ryan, it might not be in there for this one. You got your 3/4 arm slot, and then, yeah, you get dropped down. But even when we are doing all these arm slots, your body position and your posture or the side bend, however you guys want to think about it, is going to reflect that posture. So if I'm straight over the top here, I got a tight V above my shoulder. All right, if I'm going to throw 3/4, now my posture is going to reflect it. If I'm going to go from the side, now my posture is going to reflect that. All right, and that's where you can kind of mess around with some things during your catch play, just out with the family, out with friends, whatever, and just mess around with some things. All right, making sure we're square, making sure we're in a good position, an athletic position, and then kind of the 4 things that I kind of run down. You got some tasks, you have your targets, you have your tempo, and then you got your target. Throwing. But I know that was quick, and that kind of runs down the everyday drills. The PowerPoint that Ryan has pulled up, it's got the everyday drills at the top there, and then what's from probably slide 10 down is some other drills that you guys can do either with some open space or backyard or wherever it may be. But if you guys do have any questions or anything like that, feel free to give me a direct message or email. I have everything kind of listed on that PowerPoint. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. And that's about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Guys, I've got the PDF for this too. So similarly to yesterday's presentation, it'll be a link in Slack. If you can't find the link in Slack, it's literally our website. Under the About tab, it says the GOAT Experience. It'll have the recordings and the files that we share. So I'll have today's hitting drills pulled up there in a PDF. I'll have this presentation in its own PDF, and then this whole recording too. And you had kind of a 5-minute, 3 to 5 minute kind of other devotional for us today too, right?
Yeah. So kind of when I was picking this, we were kind of running through some things, but especially with kind of the environment and things going on in the world today, and just some things that I was kind of reading this morning. What I picked up, a verse, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, they are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." Jeremiah 29:11. So recognizing, for me, what that means is, yeah, like for me, the season was canceled. You know, a lot of our lives are kind of in timeout, or however you want to put it. But, you know, there's a lot of things in life that are much more important than just your everyday things that we're so grateful to play. So for me, just dealing with things in a way and kind of opening yourself up to a different perspective, which can open you up to different relationships, different networking, different possibilities, different opportunities, different problems that you might have had. But for me, any type of problem just opens up another door for an opportunity. And then another kind of verse that I had reminded me of the same thing from Romans 8:28. Story of Joseph, which had the same message. God is in control of our future and he's working for our good, whether we can see it now or not. So a lot of times we're hoping or that we have a lot more control over things that we don't. So there's a lot of things that are outside of our control that we don't have any say, if, ands, or but about. But the way that you can take that experience and take that time and kind of flip the script, create different habits, create different things that you may need to work on from a personal standpoint, from growing from a professional standpoint or whatever it may be. But just make sure that you have that frame of mind, and it gives you a lot more opportunity to spend time with loved ones, your family members, and making sure that everybody's safe and healthy. But that's about it, right?
That's awesome, man. Dude, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. If you guys want to hang out, I'll go over some of my blast stuff that we talked about. If you guys got to go, I know we've been on for a while, and we can all head out and kind of reconvene tomorrow. Tomorrow's schedule is going to be another good one. Our presentation, I believe, is with Aaron Chamberlain, but I can let me pull that up really quick just so I can tell you guys. The other thing I talked about was pelvic tilt today. If you guys want to see kind of a graph on that, stick around. Don't feel obligated. It's kind of extra kind of bonus time at this point. So kind of wait to see who kind of jumps off and what you guys want to see. And as the group gets smaller, we can kind of maybe unmute ourselves and have a little bit more of an open discussion as well. Aaron's actually going to be next week. Tomorrow's awesome presentation. It's emotional intelligence and awareness with Rob Seifer, our sports psychologist with the Chicago White Sox. He's world renowned. It's going to be phenomenal. Really good stuff for players, really good stuff for coaches to hear as well for their competency level and that stuff. So I'm pumped to have him on. Cool. What I'll do is I'll share my screen again. And if you guys, how many people do we have on? 30 people. All right. If you're interested in this, feel free to unmute yourself. If you're more of just kind of hanging out, you could stay muted so there's not too much background noise, but feel free to put stuff in the chat. And let me find it. I pulled it up. All right, cool. So let me do this. Screen share. We'll do this one. Awesome. Can you guys see my screen by chance? Thumbs up, maybe. Gallery view. Perfect. All right. So the first thing that I look at, and this kind of is almost the exact same breakdown that it's almost the exact same breakdown that Kyle gave about kind of power versus contact. And what we're trying to do here is identify certain issues. So in this slide here, the first questions I ask are going to be, is peak bat speed above 75 miles an hour? So this is going to change based on what level you're at. You can kind of pick what bat speed you want for your level. For me, I'm always a little bit higher than what the average is, just because from a peak standpoint, higher than what my expectation is going to be, just so we have something to reach for. But is our peak bat speed above 75? And then is our average bat speed above 70 miles an hour? The reason I asked that second question is so that I know if we're performing within 90 to 95% of our max. So if I want my peak bat speed to be 75, the 70, if you take 70 divided by 75, it's well within that range. So there's two things. So if I just have a really fast peak, but I'm not transferring it to the game, there's other things I have to look at. I've got to look at some WinR stuff, UIT stuff, cognitive stuff. I need to know where is that player most likely to have an ideal bat speed, what range should they kind of be in. We're still doing research on that, so I don't have like a hard, fast answer for you guys yet on kind of how to do that perfectly for each player, but we have kind of a good idea on that. So that's kind of where it's kind of hard to explain now because, like I said, it's not laid out perfectly. But ideal bat speeds to me is going to be dependent on the cognitive profile of the player, or effort levels, rather, so to speak. So whether a player performs better 85% of their peak bat speed, or whether a player performs 90 to 95% of their peak bat speed. The general rule of thumb for most players is 90 to 95% of their peak bat speed is their ideal performance range. So their in-game range is where they should be, which is how we came up with the 70-mile-an-hour bat speed from there. The next thing we look at is there rotational acceleration above 17? If it's not, that's something we can look at. And is there time to contact 0.16 or below, and go from there. So I don't know how those two yellow lines show up on the screen. That's kind of cool if you guys are able to write on it. But then my questions for swing and miss guys: is there a tack angle between 5 and 11? If it's too steep down, we have an issue. If it's above 11, we have an issue. Or if it's below 5 rather. So it kind of tells us an idea about their path. And then same thing that Kyle talked about, is there connection impact at 85 and 95? Is early connection impact between 85 and 95? Is on-plane percentage at least 65%? Now for us we could dive into this way more, but these are just our general questions. If these questions are answered yes, no problem for us. This is kind of something we let it kind of ride out if there's something we need to go back and look at. But from a blast perspective, if these questions are answered, I'm good. And we can kind of move into timing issue. We can kind of walk into timing. We can kind of walk into kind of some of the hitting stuff and not be so worried about the numbers if these kind of check our boxes. If they don't check our boxes, there's something we want to kind of be worried about. So similar, Kyle talks about this. I won't dive into this too much, but obviously the difference between rotational acceleration and this side of things is the acceleration. If both these two vehicles were allowed to only go 60 miles an hour and a quarter-mile race, the Ferrari always wins because it accelerates faster. Some other images of connection and impact, early connection, which he kind of showed you. So this is stance and style on the left, and then this is the position we want to get to kind of as they're getting ready to launch. So whether it's these two guys starting and kind of their stance and where they want to set the bat, but once they get to here, we're looking as close to 90 as possible. And then coaching cues. A lot of times when we have a lot of movement, I've noticed that coaches are saying, hey, slow down, you've got too much movement. And, if you have like a hypermobile player or somebody who uses that for the rhythm and timing, it actually makes them worse. If they're able to get to this position here, no matter how much movement they have pre-swing consistently, I'm good with the movement. So I'm not somebody who's like, it's tough to get there consistently. And then you just have to define what consistency means for you, which is going to be different for every player. I don't want to make that definition for you guys. It really depends on the guy and also what the batted ball data shows us. If he's not really consistent, but he crushes everything, he's probably got some pretty good cognitive skills, and I'm not going to mess with him anyways. He literally showed you this exact same picture, so we'll skip over that. And then things to consider for blast. For us, we refer to being on plane or being on plane early. So that's going to be that early connection is maybe like a soft entry, and getting on plane later as kind of a hard entry. So what I mean by that is if I'm entering the zone on plane this way versus if I have a little bit steeper path and then I get on plane, the earlier one would be a soft entry. The later one would be a hard entry. If you look at things like K-Vest or 4D motion, players with faster torso speeds can have a harder or later entry into the zone and get away with it. So that's something to consider. Not everything's going to be created equal there. Whereas a slower torso speed is going to have a little bit more room for error on that side of things. And the ideal bat speeds we kind of talked about falling between the peak bat speeds. That's why peak speeds matter from that aspect. If 80% of 100 is always more than 80% of 50. And players can cheat the rotational acceleration with kind of a bad arm bar or kind of almost lagging their wrist too much, creating a faster kind of rotation when the barrel starts to rotate that way. So making sure you're looking at video and not just trying to hit metrics on an app, but helping these players really understand what they're trying to do is going to play on that side of things. The 4D motion graph I want to show you guys was, where is it? This one. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the green line, and basically that's going to create that forward bend for our pelvis here. So basically how much it's going to be able to tilt itself this way as we're kind of coming up and over. The better that we're able to kind of do that from there, the better off that we're going to be. So those are kind of the things that I want to talk about. kind of go from there. Any questions on any of that stuff? Now we have a smaller group now, so if you guys want to unmute yourself and jump in, feel free. Any thoughts? Anybody do anything differently? Love to learn from you guys too if you guys have different process. Chat's in here. Let's see what's in the chat. How positive steep is too positive for attack angle? I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, I've seen guys as steep as 16 consistently. Anytime you're getting over 16 though, I mean, you're really putting yourself at a high. It's going to be tough to time. You're putting yourself at risk for higher swing and miss. Depends on what you're trying to get out of it. If you hit enough home runs and you're on time enough, then sure. You're not able to see that blast. Sorry, I'm answering two questions at once. But I'll go back to the first one. The steeper you are, obviously, as you're coming up this way, the higher risk you are for swinging and missing. The ball's coming in between 5 and 7. The more that you get off that plane, the less likely you are to just kind of square that ball up. Obviously, we want to be slightly under it just from a physics standpoint of where we want the ball to go. So if we do get between kind of 5 and 11, if we're up above 7 to 11 outside of where the pitch is coming in, then we're okay there. If we're getting above 16 though, it's going to be cause for concern unless I'm like a massive power hitter and I'm hitting like enough home runs to make it worth it. On the pelvic graph, are you able to see that graph in Blast Motion as well? No, you're not. Blast Motion is just measuring what's happening on the bat. That's actually a graph from a sensor that's on the back of the pelvis. It sits right here in the back of the pelvis with KVS or 4D motion. That was a 4D motion graph that I showed you guys. Great question. Anybody have any other thoughts on that stuff? Anybody else use Blast and kind of do it differently or look at something differently? Love to hear from you guys. Perfect. All right. Well, if you guys have any other questions, I know there's some other good ones in the chat earlier. Check out Slack. Casey, thanks so much for participating yesterday in the Slack. It started a really good conversation. Yesterday was awesome. I was really happy with it. We had a 12-year-old interacting with a high school player. There's college guys on there, college coaches, high school coaches, pro coaches involved, and pro players involved. It was really cool to see that like kind of mix. It's kind of a rare thing. We're kind of all in our own niches. So thanks so much for doing that. And we'll go from there. So see you guys.
Ryan.
What's up?
I know there was questions about how to change the bat on the app, and then like when to change the length.
I did say we were going to go over that. Who asked that question? Are you still on? I'll record it anyways, just so that way I'll put it in there. If you're still on, then awesome. Yeah, so let me pull up the app real quick, and we'll just go through that. Good call, Nate. I forgot about that. I know we're overtime today too, so for you guys hanging out, appreciate it. All right. It's going to search for my sensor. All right, so if you guys can see on here, on the upper left, I don't know what it looks like on the screen, but the upper left, there's like a dot with 3 lines. So what you're going to do is you're going to click that dot. Let me see if I can do that. And then you're going to have all these different kind of options that kind of pop up. There's going to be one tab that says My Bats. So once you click My Bats, this tab will pop up. It's going to give you all your different options. You can only have 10 bats in there at one time. So if you have to remove a bat, you just would click like the arrow going through here, and then you can click Remove Bat. That'll open up another option. The other thing that's important for this is that the name of the bat doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what brand it is. I was told when this first came out that was more for like the companies to kind of know who's using their bats and tracking that. So I never actually put the brand in unless it's an Axe bat. The app does have to know if it's an Axe bat, and then you have to put the Blast Man up, which there's instructions in the app of how to do that. Once you're in here and you need to add a bat or change, that's basically this little plus sign. So you'll just add that bat. It'll say my bats are full, so I have to delete one first. And then what you'll do in order to change a bat is once you've got your listed here, you'll literally just click on how to change a bat into here on your app, and it'll be live. You'll know if it's live or not too, because if your sensor's connected, it'll light up green versus mine's gray because my sensor's I think in Arizona for this particular app. So that's how we change a bat. One funny story about changing your bats is make sure your bat sizes are right. I got a question one time for somebody we were working with remotely about like why their bat speed was way off. It was a college player, and like I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I have no idea like why. Like there's no way that's right though. Like there's absolutely no way that this is right. And it turns out I was like, hey, can you just check the bat? And they were swinging like a T-ball bat, and they were supposed to be swinging like a 34-inch, whatever it was. Like, okay, that's why all the numbers are off. So we figured that out. But make sure the bat is right. It's probably more common, and you'll get more consistent numbers when your bat's right too. You're not going to confuse the sensor. The sensor can only measure what it knows, and when weird stuff happens, it confuses it. Was there any other questions? Bill, thanks for asking that question. Great question. Cool. All right, guys. If you guys have any other questions, Slack was awesome yesterday. Keep participating in there, please, and we'll go from there. Thanks, guys.